Kay did not need to hear that. So, oh gosh, Alton. What was that? Yeah. I was saying that too. Like, Kate, you're sitting at your desk. Okay. We were talking about this in first period today. I can start with that. Have you guys ever seen this breakdown before? This is Aristotle. Aristotle talks about friendships. And, when I was a kid, I used to think, oh, those philosophers, they just make crap up. And I think there is some of that. But, I've learned that a lot of it is actually just building categories, recognizing differences. So what Aristotle does is says, there are three different kinds of friendship. Pleasure, utility, and virtue. And here's what he says, that people with whom I have a pleasant friendship, right? These are people I hang out with, might go grab dinner with or play ball with or talk sports with. I'm going to have a good time with them. If I'm having some kind of personal crisis, I'm not going to them. And if I did, then they would probably react awkwardly. Like, I don't think anyone ever or rarely thinks we don't have that kind of friendship. But that's what it is, right? Friendships of utility. These are people you work with, or maybe you're on a team with, or you're in a class with, and you think you're friends. But then soccer season is over, you finish statistics, you quit that job, and then you realize, we don't talk anymore. We don't hang out anymore. Right? Our friendship was actually rooted in what we were doing together. And then you have friendships of virtue. And Aristotle, of course, says this is, these aren't negative, right? But friendship of virtue is the highest form of friendship. I think that it would be unrealistic to think I'm going to have this kind of friendship with everybody. So again, I want to drive home, like all of us fall into one of these two categories with other people. But I hope that we have several we can fall into virtue with. These are the people who are they're with you through thick and thin. Even they don't necessarily condone what you did, but they're going to hang with you through the crisis. They're willing to be awkward. They're also willing, and this is the big test, they're also willing to say something to you that threatens your friendship because they think it's that important. They love you that much that you need the correction, and it's worth the potential anger to be upfront with you. Right? So virtuous friendships are friendships where each partner makes the other one better. C.S. Lewis, in his book, The Four Loves, when he talks about the Greek word for love, or for love of friendship, which is philos, he says that when we have this fraternal love, it's, we stand shoulder to shoulder, side to side, and look at the mountains on the horizon and say, we're going to tackle that together. Right, so that fits into virtuous friendship. By the way, if you're looking for a book, you might find that one interesting. C.S. Lewis's The Four Loves. I have the audio, which is C.S. Lewis. It's also on YouTube in 4 different segments with a cool little whiteboard background where someone's like drawing stuff. But as Lewis says in the book, in Greek, there are 4 words for love. And he goes through each one of them and applies them. It's really pretty cool. He recorded it for the Episcopal Church in the U.S. just a few years before he died. That was pretty neat. Okay, we were talking about that in first period because, of course, we have the conversation with fellowship. And at the end of page 2 of Everyman, when Everyman is bemoaning his fate, right? And he says, one of the craziest things to me that he says is, I wish I'd never been born. It would be a benefit to me. You see how that's really bad, right? Do you see that? Like, things have to be incredibly bad for it actually to be better for you if you didn't exist. Because it's kind of a philosophical contradiction in terms to say I'd be better off if I weren't. Then he prays, Lord, help that all wrought. Lord, who created everything, help me. He prays. He says, who can go with me? Oh, all bring fellowship. Always been good friends in sport and play. And that's where I want you thinking pleasure. Is that the kind of friendship that's going to go through a crisis like, I don't know, dying with you? Probably not. Okay. Before I get carried away with that, what, if anything, do we need to review from yesterday? Do we need to go back and talk about the conversation with Apple? I have no doubt that, especially with a second lead, you guys are aware of the events of the story, but of course we want to be able to get in and offer analysis as well. So where are we? What do you want to do with this story? Go ahead, Andrew.
The other day you were talking about, or I guess yesterday, you were saying that all of the other actors are female. Why is that?
Attributes are female, just like cars and boats. I don't know.
Deeper meaning to that.
I don't think so. If there is, then, Mr. Files, it would be rooted somewhat in this word, anima. It's both a Greek and a Latin word. And you know what that word means, anima?
And friendship, maybe?
No, not amico or ami.
Mind.
Close.
Soul.
Yeah, it means soul. And so, and it's feminine. So in the vast majority of Christian writings, because of the biblical example, the Christian, and you got to work with me on this, it's a metaphor. The Christian is feminine before God's masculinity. Now, it's not saying God is a man, right? But it's about that biblical image of God and people, or Christ and church, that spousal analogy throughout Scripture, and the idea of God being the one who is being for, who goes out of, and the Christian is then receptive to God. Right, so that imagery is buried in there. Now, I'm going to tell you, Andrew, I'm probably like, I don't think that that's the analysis for why goods is feminine and beauty is feminine. I just know that where pronouns get used, it's often her. No, I don't know. And I kind of doubt that it would have been actresses on the stage. There you go. We talk about Everyman's attempts to get out of death. Like, what does he offer death? He says, there lieth in your power to save me.
You're offering money, right?
Money! Does death go for money? Why not?
Because he's dead. He's not like an actual guy.
Yeah, he's a metaphorical construct. He's intangible.
Because you can't take physical possessions when you die.
And how about this? Let's say he did take money. Let's say he did take bribes.
Didn't you say something along the lines of, if I could take bribes, I would own the world?
Yeah, he goes, I don't just kill people like you. I also take like kings and emperors and popes. And you think your measly fortune is going to sway me? Please.
Was this written by a Catholic?
Sure.
Okay. I'm just wondering, because popes, I was wondering if it was a knock on the papal office because they kind of had a reputation back then for being pretty.
Well, so trying to think, if this is 13th century, you do have by this time,
Was Avignon?
I was just going to say, I do think you've got Avignon going on. But the other thing to consider is, we think of the Pope as a spiritual leader. Really, I think we think of him as a spiritual leader only. The popes in medieval Europe, and bishops for that matter, were also secular leaders. In some places, as early as the 4th and 5th century, the bishop, because Rome had pulled back, the bishop was the de facto governor of an area. Like Ambrose of Milan was basically, when their bishop died, Ambrose wasn't even baptized yet. He was a catechumen. And they just went, you know what, Ambrose, you're a good leader. Boom, you're going to be bishop. And so I think in one day he's baptized, confirmed, and ordained to the episcopacy. So anyway, point being, popes were convinced that if they were going to have any play on the world stage or the European stage, they had to have secular power as well. Which, of course, as you're pointing out, becomes dangerous because now people start vying for the position, for the prestige and the power. So absolutely, it could be a shot at the papacy. It's really weird. It's like it's a respected position, and at the same time, kind of like, well, that's how they do. Like, to give you an idea, some bishoprics were so sought after and so often went to the highest bidder that the people would sometimes make fun of their bishops for not being able to speak in Latin. And I've read these remarks by this one guy whose dad bought him a bishopric in the Middle Ages, and his comment was, being a bishop's a pretty good job. It's just you have to keep going to church. Right? So it could well be a shot. Hey, Everyman's second ask is my favorite. Did you guys get a chuckle out of that? He says, look, if I just had more time, a little bit more time, a day, a week, 12 years. I could be ready in 12 years. That cracks me up. I guess go big or go home, right? What's his third ask? Do you remember?
Someone else that one.
That's 4. And that's the one Death says yes to. That's important because that lets us have a play. Can I come back? That's his third ask. If I go with you, can I come back? And Death says, no, it's a one-way ticket, dog. One way. And then, like Mr. Kosei says, can I bring someone with me? Yes, if you can find someone brave enough. Now, guys, that brings us to what is probably the most important idea in the play. Death says to Everyman, did you think that your life belonged to you? Well, you guys know the quote unquote correct answer. So instead of thinking, what's the correct answer? Just think, honestly, don't you think your life belongs to you? Isn't that what saying my life means? So Everyman, of course, says, well, yes. No, Everyman. Your life was but lent to you. Guys, in what way does it make sense to think of life as something loaned? Jackson?
Religious perspective, like God giving me.
So if he gives it to you, Mr. Smith, it's not yours?
You take it back.
Say it again?
It's taken back through debt.
Right. And you decide when that happens, right?
Not
Ooh, you would use that kind of terminology, wouldn't you?
Except in case you
yes.
You got you got to pay for it somehow, right? So if your life is lent to you, not given to you, that changes your responsibility with it. What are you supposed to do with it?
Keep it
What do you mean keep it?
like in good condition.
Keep it in good condition? It's kind of like if I loan you my car, I don't want any more scratches or loss of paint than I already have on it. Okay?
You need to do something with it.
What do you mean do something with it? Put more scratches and dents on it?
No, like invest it, but invest your time and the values and attributes and skills that came along with the life
Yeah.
to make the world
Yeah.
better.
Do you guys know the parable of the talents? I got some nods and some nays. Most of you probably, once I start telling the story, you're gonna go, "Oh yeah." It's a guy gives money to 3 of his servants, and the focus is on the third servant. The money is a talent, which is equivalent to about a year's wage, and the third servant gets just 1. And when the Lord comes back, he's like, "Okay, where's my money? What'd you do with my talent?" The guy's like, "Dude, I buried it. I was so afraid I'd lose it, I just buried it." Now, Lord goes, "You idiot. You could have put it into the bank. Would have made interest. You wasted your talent." Same idea, right? Okay, well, how about fellowship? Do you guys understand the idiom, "I painted myself into a corner"? What does that idiom mean?
Painting a wall and then you're painting like a room, and then you can't walk out of the corner you're stuck in because
So-
then you'll mess up the paint.
So if I'm painting this floor, where should I finish? The door. But because I'm me, and I'm going to paint myself into a corner, I'm going to wind up back there where Danny is. I'm going to look around and go, "Oh, snap."
go out the window.
Possibility. I'll throw Danny out first. I can jump on him and glide. How does fellowship paint himself into a corner?
He says, I'll stay with you. Like, he keeps saying to everyone, like, I'll be there for you or whatever. And when everyone asks the question, he's like, yeah.
How far does he take it? How far does he say he'd be willing to go to be with every man? Stop pretending like you have it memorized. It's okay to look at it. It's supposed to be in front of you.
Oh, he said he'd even go to hell.
Yeah. I would die with you. Dude, I would go to hell with you. And if you're every man, you're going like, all right, I made the right choice here. Now, I think one of the most touching lines, though, is when every man says, "If my heart should to you break, and then you turn your mind from me, it would not me comfort. When you hear me speak, then I should 10 times sorrier be." Do you guys understand that? Do you know what he's, no?
No.
Maybe, we translate just a little bit. If I should break my heart to you, break open my heart to you, and you turn from me and don't comfort me after you hear me speak, then I would be 10 times more depressed. You know what he means when he says, if I broke my heart open to you?
Like if he like opened himself up and like let the other guy hear like what he was feeling, and the other guy just didn't like he made pretend like he was listening, but just didn't really care. And then like just kind of left him there and I like forgot about it. And it just shows that he doesn't care. And the guy that opened up to him cared about the other guy.
Yeah.
But, and,
It's going to wind up hurting even more.
what?
So it winds up hurting even more.
Yeah.
If you guys, maybe you've experienced this. It's like you can build an emotional wall, and as long as you keep it up, then you're good. But like the moment that you crack it open, it's like a flood. It's like I remember when my grandmother died, and I was very close to her. I gave a reading at her funeral, and then I also, my cousin Steve and I both gave eulogies. And Steve couldn't give his, so I read it for him. And then I gave mine. And I started off by telling the story. I called Grandma and Grandpa to interview them about the Great Depression for a college class. And Grandma, they actually had ice boxes. Okay, so once a week, the ice man cometh, right, and gave them a block of ice. And Grandma, she and the kids in her neighborhood, when he was delivering a cube, they would jump into the back of his truck and grab shards of ice. Now, my grandmother was 4'11", and she was a kindergarten teacher who never learned how to drive. Grandpa gave up teaching her when she drove through the garage door. And her friends, though, when they would go out to the bar, they'd still give her a little pin that said DD. She walked to church. She walked to the food pantry to help there. Walked every really little town. She also never learned how to swim, but they'd leave her in charge of the grandkids in the shallow end. Whatever. She could stand. But sweetest little lady, right? Grandpa was a World War II veteran. Worked 3 jobs, rough and ready kind of guy. So they're on the phone and he cuts in and he says, I bet you had no idea that I was married to a criminal, a hardened thief. Well, it was a great memory to hear them laughing like that. I got that far. That's my introduction. I got that far in my eulogy and just lost it. Just started weeping. And Steve leaned over and he said, I can't read your writing, Ed. I was like, I don't want you to read it anyway. So anyway, I had built up this wall, and because I was now giving the eulogy, and if you've been to a funeral, you know that's, you can be super strong getting up to it, but then it's like, poof. That's the kind of approach I want you to take in this story with Everyman here. He's revealing his biggest concern. And if you reject me after this, it will crush me. And I even see, and maybe you've experienced this, where you hold off, and then you finally go, okay, he's going to listen, and it all tumbles out. Everyman does that. He says at the bottom left-hand column, page 3, okay, I'll show you how it is. Commanded I am to go on a journey, a long way, hard and dangerous, and give a straight count without delay before the high judge Adonai. Wherefore I pray you bear me company as you've promised in this journey. And fellowship's all like, I don't know about that. He says, I think that would hurt. And it makes me afraid. But even a straw man would be afraid. But you said you'd never forsake me, quick or dead, even if it were to hell. Yeah, so I said, certainly, with such pleasures be set aside. He says, that's what you say to people. You're not supposed to call me on it. You know, like when someone sees you in the hallway and says, hey man, how's it going? How are you doing? Does he really mean it? Does he really want to know how you're doing? If you have a terrible morning, are you going to tell him? It might depend on who asked you, right? But are you guys following me here? Yeah, you just say things like that. Okay. Wither away fellowship, will you forsake me? Oh yeah, by my faith to God I betake thee. Hey, we have this guy dying, and his friends are leaving him, and he uses the word forsake. What does that make you think of? Jesus. Okay, now if we're Christians, on what or on whom are we supposed to depend completely?
Jesus.
Okay, Jesus/God, right? And that's what Jesus does, right? Who winds up being or feeling like he's forsaken even by God. My God, why have you forsaken me? Hey, let's be honest. Let's be honest. Are we, at least on the regular, actually depending upon God before anything else? Or do we think we've got to take care of things? When you're in trouble, do you, and I'm not looking for details, this is really kind of rhetorical, but don't you go to your friends? Don't you go to your family? Maybe you think about your money. Can I buy my way out of this? Can any of it guarantee success? No. That's what we're watching with Everyman. So I want you to think about the play as a whole. Go ahead and, if you can't remember, jump to the end. What are Everyman's final words?
Into thy hands, Lord, my soul.
Into your hands, Lord, I commend my spirit. Who said that first? Jesus on the cross. Do you know what the word Christian means? What? I thought I heard someone say it.
The person of Christ.
A person of Christ? It means to be Christ-like. It means to follow Christ. So what I want you thinking about in this story is the idea of Everyman divesting himself of everything that he has placed before God. So he put himself before God, he put friends before God, kindred and cousin. What else did he put before God? Money. He said, all my life I've loved riches. What did death say at the beginning of the story about people who love riches? Well, what he says is he's going to strike them with his dart, and they'll depart from heaven and go to hell, unless they give alms. So the problem is not wealth, the problem is overly loving wealth. Now, we talked yesterday, Mr. Fuente brought it up for us. We talked yesterday about that description of wealth. Just piled and packed in bags and locked up, and how negative that is. Notice also that God says, I am too brittle to go through death with you, and my love is contrary to the love everlasting. It wouldn't go well for you if I went before God with you. And every man recognizes, I gave you the love that I should have given God. Let's get to, I think it's page 4 when good deeds shows up, and we talked about her a little bit yesterday, right? What is good deeds buried under? Sins. Yeah, so you're not wrong. But sins is more to the point. How does so she's stuck on the floor. How does Everyman help good deeds? Who is saying, like, look, I'm willing to go with you? Confession. And who helps them with confession? Knowledge. And why is that? Well, yes, you have to know your sins to repent of them. That's the idea. Or you hope to know about them. Recognize you need to ask for forgiveness. Okay, so we got Everyman, we got good deeds, we got knowledge. Then we also have beauty and strength and 5 wits. What are the 5 wits? Your 5 senses. And discretion. What's discretion?
Like, what's right and wrong?
Yeah, it's the ability to make decisions between right and wrong. And they all promise to be with him forever. Now, did you notice when you were reading this that each of these characters, I almost said carrots, each of these characters exits in a particular order? Who goes first? No. Sir? Beauty. Think about life. Beauty, strength, senses, decision making. Which one do people tend to lose first, barring some kind of accident? Beauty. What comes next? Strength. And then?
Discretion.
Yeah. If we're lucky, we get old enough to go senile. And some of it I think is kind of funny, right? Like strength says, I'll be with you just like I was with Judas Maccabee. When Judas Maccabee fought a war. It's not necessarily the kind of strength that he needs. Beauty. Did you know beauty runs off when every man says, you're going to wind up in the grave with me? Why doesn't beauty want to go in the grave? Vanity. No one can see me down there. So we see every man stripped of all of these things that he had thought would always be with him. Bottom page 5, I've got, I like strength's farewell. Go thrust yourself into the ground. Nice. Every man says, he that trusteth in his strength, she deceiveth at the length. Well, strength and discretion leaves, and now we're on page 6. I want you to look at, there are several lines on this page that I like a lot. The second time every man talks on page 6, all thing faileth save God alone. That line. Ooh, I think it's a great line. This is one of those lines that sticks with me year round. Oh, all thing faileth save God alone. This is what every man has learned. And he tells his 5 wits, I took you to be my best friend. So they leave. Now he's completely forsaken. And about halfway down that column, knowledge, will you forsake me also? And knowledge says, yes, every man. When you to death do go, but not yet for no manner of danger. And he says, thank you. I guess thank you for honesty, but thank you for walking with me. Knowledge does not go into the grave. I'm going to come back to this. Okay? Good deeds. Toward the bottom of the column, she says, all earthly things is but vanity. And that's another one that I hold on to. All earthly things is but vanity. And then he dies. He he puts himself into God's hands. Look at knowledge's final lines here. Now hath he suffered that we all shall endure. The good deeds shall make all sure. Now hath he made ending. Methinketh that I hear angels sing and make great joy and melody where every man's soul received shall be. There are several things I find very interesting about this. First, you got to think about this, okay? How are we saved? If you look at this story, how is every man saved?
It was good deeds.
Through his good deeds. No. Wrong.
Giving himself to the Lord.
Yes. Why would I say, because raise your hand if you were going to say what Kosei said. Go ahead. I'm not going to burn you at the stake. I think it was more of you than that. It looks like good deeds saves. You know, she's the one who goes with him. She's going to vouch for him in front of God. But the story actually shows that it's faith. How? Where am I getting that? And it's not the into your hands, Lord, I commend my spirit. It's not that line, although that's indicative of it.
Is it about the belief that if you know about the Christian God but aren't a Christian, that you haven't?
And that's not it.
He basically goes willingly at the end.
Also maybe indicative, but not really the proof.
Is it that knowledge didn't go in the grave with him?
Mm-mm.
He recognizes that God is the only thing that really matters.
We've got proof in the play. Okay? Good deeds will go with him. But what is the state in which good deeds finds herself when we first meet her?
Trapped under.
Trapped under sin. And how is she free from sin? Seeking out God's mercy. Okay, this play has all kinds of things in it that we think will save us in one way or another. We think, I'll get through by dashing good looks. I'll get through by my strength. I'm very wily. I'm good. I'm strongly observant. I know a lot of things. I've got lots of money. I've done a lot of good things. Guys, Catholics, especially in medieval Catholicism, is often described as a religion where you earn your way into heaven or something. Right? That good works thing. Oh, that's how you get into heaven, all your good works. Your good works vouch for you, according to this play. Remember, did you think your life was given to thee? It was but loaned to thee. And why was it loaned to you? To do something with it. Well done, good and faithful servant, says the Lord. But it's faith that frees him of his sins. And good deeds is willing to go with him. Now, the character that I am the most interested in is knowledge. Now, I want you to think about this. You know, money doesn't save. Beauty, strength, they don't save. If you're honest with yourself, have you ever thought, well, if someone knows a lot about religion, then he's probably holy? Have you ever just kind of like had this de facto thought that maybe your preacher or your minister, oh, that dude, that dude's holy because he knows more of the Bible? I mean, maybe if you were sat down and pushed to it, you would go, oh, no. But do you kind of have that thought? Sure. According to Christianity, does knowledge save you? Do you have to have a degree in Christian theology to get to heaven? What do you have to know? What belief do you need to hold? We hope at the very least. Isn't it just love for Jesus?
Yep.
Knowing that he saved me? Now, more knowledge is great. It's helpful. But you got to see, right? Nothing saves except faith. And good deeds goes with every man to say what he did with his life. Knowledge doesn't go with him to explain what he understood. As a matter of fact, and this is my favorite part about it, knowledge says, I think I hear angels singing. Why does knowledge only say, I think? Why not?
Can't. Oh, wait, because it's not something within his earthly knowledge.
Yeah.
Isn't.
What do we live by? Not knowledge, faith. Live by faith. So knowledge will go up to the grave with every man, but it can't go in. Guys, it's an 800-year-old story. Think about the theological depth there. I think that's awesome. There's probably a lot more we could chew apart with. But alas, we're out of time. The end is not nigh, it is. Read Frankenstein. Have a great weekend. We've got some seminars on Monday. Bye.
If we're virtual, what do we do about seminars? Just wait or do them online?